Albion Falls. Albion Falls in Hamilton. Albion Falls is believed to be haunted by the ghost of a woman named Jane Riley, who jumped off of the falls after her engagement was cut. It was also a popular dumping ground for murder victims, such as John Dick. It was featured by Creepy Canada. Albion Falls in Hamilton, Ontario, is primarily associated with the tragic legend of Jane Riley, a story that has earned the site the nickname Lover's Leap. Albion Falls in Hamilton, Ontario, is primarily associated with the tragic legend of Jane Riley, a story that has earned the site the nickname Lover's Leap. The legend of Jane Riley, Lover's Leap. In the early 20th century, often cited as September 1915, Jane Riley fell deeply in love with Joseph Rousseau. Their romance was cut short when Joseph, facing intense pressure from his mother who disapproved of the match, broke off the engagement. Devastated by the rejection, Jane is said to have climbed to the top of the 100-foot cliff at Albion Falls and flung herself into the ravine. According to local lore, the specter, on moonlit nights, visitors claim to see an ethereal glowing specter or a woman in a white dress standing at the top of the falls. The cries, many report hearing the sound of a woman softly weeping or crying out from the gorge, even when no one else is around. The mother's fate, legend says Jane's ghost haunted Joseph's mother. Years later, Mrs. Rousseau reportedly shrieked, "Jane's hand is on my shoulder," before dropping dead unexpectedly. Other dark history. Beyond the legend of Jane Riley, Albion Falls is often cited in paranormal circles due to its proximity to other grim historical events. The Evelyn Dick torso murder. In 1946, children playing near the base of the falls discovered the headless, limbless torso of John Dick. His wife, Evelyn Dick, became Hamilton's most infamous torso murderess. Some believe John Dick's spirit also haunts the area. Mob dumping ground. In the early 1900s, the remote woods surrounding the falls were reportedly used by local mobsters, including bootlegger Rocco Perry, as a secret burial site for victims. Algonquin Provincial Park is associated with several ghost stories and legends, including tales of a phantom canoe, the ghost of artist Tom Thomson, and the indigenous legend of the Wendigo. The former logging town of Kiosk, now a campground, is also considered a ghost town. Prominent ghost stories. The ghost of Tom Thomson, one of the most famous Canadian mysteries, involves the death of artist Tom Thomson, whose body was found in Canoe Lake in July 1917 under mysterious circumstances. Many people claim to have seen his ghost paddling a canoe on the lake, with some reports even capturing a shadowy figure on film. The Phantom Canoe/Lady of the Lake, another common legend, tells of a spectral figure, sometimes referred to as the Lady of the Lake, seen canoeing across the park's lakes on moonlit nights. Believed to be the spirit of a young woman who drowned while searching for her lost lover, the phantom canoe glides silently across the water without a sound or wake. The Wendigo legend, rooted in First Nations folklore. The terrifying legend of the Wendigo describes a monstrous creature with a ravenous hunger that is said to stalk the park's deeper wilderness. Encounters with the Wendigo are described as paralyzing with fear and serve as a warning of nature's darker, unpredictable power. Kiosk Ghost Town, the site of a former thriving logging community. Kiosk became a ghost town after the mill was destroyed by a mysterious fire in the 1960s. Though the buildings are gone, The lingering eeriness of the once bustling place remains, and some visitors report strange occurrences and the feeling of being watched. The mayor of Brent, the former logging village and railway stop of Brent, is said to be haunted by the restless ghost of its last year-round resident, Mr. Adam Pitts, known as the mayor, who passed away in 1998. His ruined cottage is a site of alleged paranormal activity. Buck Hill in Round Lake, Ontario. The story is set during the Great Depression or the early 20th century. The disappearance: a logger returned home during a severe winter storm to find his daughter distraught because the family dog had run away. Despite his warnings, the daughter chased after the dog into the storm and vanished. The search: the father took his lantern and spent the rest of his life frantically searching the woods and Buck Hill Road. The haunting: local lore says the logger's spirit continues the search. Witnesses report seeing a swaying light often described as green, orange, or amber moving through the trees as if held by someone walking. Key ritual: to summon the spirit, locals and thrill seekers often perform a specific ritual on Buck Hill Road at night. Drive to the hill and turn the car around to face the direction you came from. Flash your headlights 3 times into the darkness. Shout "Daddy" several times, some say 3, others say 9, in the tone of a young girl. Many claim that after this, a baseball-sized orb of light will appear and may even approach the vehicle. The light: investigators describe the lights as 3-dimensional orbs that illuminate the surrounding forest. They differ from standard headlights and can flare up in intensity before vanishing. Physical evidence: some visitors have reported finding unexplained handprints on their dusty vehicles after waiting for the lights to appear. Other sounds: people have also reported hearing disembodied voices or screams coming from the forest. Bytown Museum. The Bytown Museum in Ottawa, considered one of the city's most haunted sites, is associated with ghost stories primarily involving Duncan McNabb, Lieutenant Colonel John By, and the Irish canal workers who died during the construction of the Rideau Canal. Notable ghost stories. Duncan McNabb. The ghost most frequently reported is that of Duncan McNabb, a former supply manager during the canal's construction who reportedly never left his post. Museum staff and visitors have reported doors shaking violently, sounds of heavy footsteps on the stairs or in the vault, the sound of 2 men arguing. Lieutenant Colonel John By. Lieutenant Colonel John By, the engineer who supervised the canal's construction, is also believed to haunt the museum. In one instance, an employee's computer shut down and rebooted to a blank screen repeatedly displaying the words "Light Col John By," as if to assert his presence over McNabb's. Restless canal workers. Some believe the museum is haunted by the hundreds of Irish workers who died during the canal's construction due to illness, exhaustion, and hunger and were buried with little ceremony. Haunted dolls. Visitors have reported hearing the sound of children crying near the museum's porcelain dolls, which some claim have been known to move positions on their own. Experience the hauntings. The Haunted Walk of Ottawa offers specific Ghosts of the Bytown Museum tours that provide after-hours access to the building and feature chilling tales from staff and guides. These tours typically run at various times throughout the year, including a special Nightmare Before/After Xmas tour during the holiday season. Fort George in Niagara-on-the-Lake. It was one of Canada's strongholds during the War of 1812-35. It was featured by Creepy Canada, the Guerrilla Ghost Hunters, and Knock Knock Ghost. Fort George in Niagara-on-the-Lake is widely regarded as one of the most haunted locations in Canada. Its history as a major military site during the War of 1812, where it witnessed significant violence and destruction, has left behind numerous legends of restless spirits. Famous spirits of Fort George. The fort is home to a garrison of ghosts, with several recurring figures reported by visitors and staff. Sarah Ann. The most famous ghost at the fort is a 7-year-old girl. She is often seen sitting on stairs or following tour groups, playing peekaboo and mischievous pranks like tapping visitors on the shoulder. Some believe she was the daughter of a soldier who died from disease in 1840. The Watcher, the tall man, an ominous, shadowy figure frequently spotted skulking around the blockhouses. He is known to peer out from behind bunk beds and follow guests between buildings. The Sentinel, a ghostly soldier who reportedly died of exposure on a frigid night in 1811. He is often seen marching back and forth on the bastion with a musket. Notably, his legs are sometimes seen disappearing into the earth because the ground level has risen 3 feet since his time. The Woman in the Mirror. In the officers' quarters, guests have reported seeing a woman with long brown hair combing her hair in an antique mirror. A piano in the same parlor is also known to play on its own. Eerie phenomena. Visitors to the fort frequently report unexplained occurrences that add to its haunted reputation. Phantom sounds, disembodied voices, military orders, and the sound of heavy boots on stairs are commonly reported, even when the fort is empty. Physical interactions. Doors in the officers' quarters are known to pop open and slam shut without human assistance. Electronic interference. Many visitors report that fully charged camera and phone batteries inexplicably drain to zero upon entering the fort, only to return to full power once they leave the grounds. Fort Henry National Historic Site. It was featured by Creepy Canada, the Guerrilla Ghost Hunters, and Knock Knock Ghost. Fort Henry National Historic Site in Kingston, Ontario, is widely regarded as one of Canada's most haunted locations. Its history as a 19th-century military fortification and prisoner-of-war camp has left behind numerous tales of restless spirits and tragic deaths. Key ghost stories and figures. Nils von Skultz, perhaps the most famous spirit. He was a Swedish officer executed by hanging in 1838 following the Battle of the Windmill. His ghost is said to still haunt the grounds where he met his end. The Mischievous Girl, an apparition of an adolescent girl, possibly an officer's daughter, is frequently reported in the bakery and schoolroom. She is blamed for slamming doors and knocking pots and jugs off shelves. Scuttles, a tall, disfigured ghost known as Scuttles is said to haunt the fort's tunnels and rooms. Tour guides often challenge brave visitors to be the last to leave the schoolroom for a chance to encounter him. The Wandering Soldier. Some report seeing a ghostly soldier who fell to his death from the 30-foot parapets into the dry ditch surrounding the fort. The Rocking Chair Room. Visitors and staff have reported eerie occurrences in a specific room containing a rocking chair, which some have seen moving on its own. Paranormal activity and events. Common sightings. Eyewitnesses often report hearing footsteps, mysterious voices, and the sound of shattering glass. Many claim to feel an oppressive sensation of being watched while in the limestone tunnels. The Haunted Walk. For a detailed exploration, you can book the Haunted Walk of Fort Henry, a 75 to 90-minute lantern-lit tour that shares these dark histories. Fort Fright. During the Halloween season, the site hosts Fort Fright, an immersive haunt featuring animatronics and live actors that leans into the fort's spooky reputation. Media coverage. The site was prominently featured in an episode of the television show Ghost Hunters, Taps, where investigators explored reports of prisoner spirits. Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. The first lighthouse keeper, John Paul Radel-Muller, was murdered by soldiers from nearby Fort York looking for bootlegged beer on January 2, 1815. These soldiers were charged with murder, but were eventually acquitted. A coffin was found in 1893 buried in the sand with a jawbone in it. However, it is not clear whether this was part of the lighthouse keeper's remains or not. The murder legend. According to popular folklore, on the night of January 2, 1815, Radel-Muller was visited by two soldiers from nearby Fort York. The story has two main variations regarding the motive. The bootleg dispute. Radel-Muller reportedly brewed and sold his own beer to supplement his income. Legend says he refused to serve the soldiers more alcohol after they had already become rowdy, leading to a fatal altercation. The watered-down beer. Another version claims the soldiers discovered the beer they purchased was diluted with water after it froze during their march back to the fort. Enraged, they returned to the lighthouse to seek revenge. The soldiers allegedly beat or stabbed Radel-Muller to death, then dismembered his body and buried the remains in various spots around the lighthouse to conceal the crime. Reported hauntings. Witnesses and visitors to the lighthouse, which is the oldest existing lighthouse on the Great Lakes, have reported several paranormal occurrences over the years. Shadowy figures. A misty or shadowy figure is often seen moving up the spiral staircase or pacing the top platform as if still tending to the light. Eerie sounds. People have reported hearing low moans, heavy thumps, and even a man's voice cautiously calling out for help. Phantom lights. Although the beacon has been out of use for decades, some claim to see unexplained lights flickering in the windows during stormy weather. A real cold case. Radel-Muller did indeed die a violent death on January 2, 1815. Two soldiers, John Henry and John Blumen, were charged with his murder but were ultimately acquitted due to a lack of evidence. The discovery of remains. In 1893, the lighthouse's fourth keeper, George Dernan, discovered a human jawbone and coffin fragments buried in the sand roughly 150 meters from the lighthouse, which many believe belonged to Radel-Muller. Hockey Hall of Fame. Hockey Hall of Fame ghost story. The Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto is famously rumored to be haunted by a ghost named Dorothy May Elliott. The legend. Dorothy was a 19-year-old bank teller who worked at the location in the 1950s when it was a Bank of Montreal branch. According to legend, she shot herself in a second-floor washroom or vault area in March 1953, allegedly following a failed romantic affair with a married manager. She died in the hospital the following day. Reported sightings. Apparitions. Visitors and staff have reported seeing a woman with long dark hair in vintage attire moving in and out of walls or staring at guests. Strange activity. Reports include flickering lights, doors, and windows opening or closing on their own, and the sound of footsteps, shrieking, or moans in empty hallways. Physical encounters. Some former employees claim to have felt a presence watching them or have witnessed objects moving, such as chairs spinning on their own. Hotspots. Most activity is reported on the second floor, particularly near the women's restroom and the old bank vault. The hauntings were reportedly so unsettling in the 1950s that the bank had to build a second restroom in the basement because female staff refused to use the original one. Kiefer Mansion. The Kiefer Mansion, located in Thorold, Ontario, is widely considered one of the most haunted locations in the Niagara region. Built in 1885 by Hugh Kiefer, the 9,000-square-foot castle on the hill has a history marked by financial ruin and a transition through various roles, including a maternity ward, hospital, and chronic care facility. Reported ghostly activity. The mansion's diverse history as a medical facility is often cited as the source of its many reported hauntings. Common paranormal reports include phantom children and babies. Visitors and staff have reported seeing spirits of young children and hearing the distinct sounds of babies crying. Apparitions of the elderly. Figures of elderly people are frequently seen throughout the building, likely linked to its time as a chronic care home. Physical manifestations. Guests have reported experiencing slamming doors, hearing unexplained footsteps, and feeling sudden, forceful pushes from unseen entities. Visual evidence. Some visitors claim to have captured images of spirits, including a little old lady with gray hair dressed in black, and figures lounging on the beds. Historical facts and legends. The Widow's Walk. The mansion features a hidden staircase behind a bookcase leading to a widow's walk. Gambler's Luck. Hugh Kiefer, known for gambling, reportedly designed the 24 steps leading up to the mansion to match the number of cards in a euchre deck. Secret Tunnel. A sealed tunnel in the basement is rumored to have been used for bootlegging, leading toward the old canal. Spiritual Purging. In 2005, city officials and spiritual mediums reportedly walked the halls to attempt to purge the spirits from the house. Kingston Penitentiary. Kingston Penitentiary, Canada's oldest maximum security prison, 1835 to 2013. Is the site of numerous chilling ghost stories rooted in its violent history of riots and murders. Notable ghost stories. The vengeful spirit of George Hewell. The most famous ghost is George Hewell, a violent inmate who died in 1897 after a guard struck him in self-defense. As he died, he reportedly vowed revenge and has since been seen by both guards and tour visitors. The Protective Guard, William Wentworth. In 1961, Guard William Wentworth was stabbed to death on duty. Witnesses often report hearing the metallic tinkling of his keys or seeing a figure locking doors at night, seemingly still protecting the prison from its more dangerous spirits. The Girl in the Red Dress. A mysterious young girl is frequently sighted wandering the grounds. She is believed to be the daughter of a former guard captain, though the reason for her presence remains unknown. E-block hauntings. This section is said to be haunted by the spirits of inmates killed during the prison's many violent episodes, including the 1971 riot. Visitors report cold spots, disembodied voices, and the sensation of being watched or followed. The Shadow Man of G-Range. Reports from former guides mention a shadow man seen in G-Range, often linked to the last few murders that occurred before the facility closed in 2013. Mackenzie Inn in Kirkfield. The Sir William Mackenzie Inn in Kirkfield, Ontario, is a historic Victorian mansion built in 1888 that is widely rumored to be haunted. Local legends and guest reports focus on several recurring paranormal claims. Common ghost stories. The lady or nun figure. Multiple visitors and reviewers have reported seeing the apparition of a woman, often described as a nun, wandering the halls or appearing in guest rooms. Invisible presence on beds. Some guests have claimed to feel the weight of an invisible figure sitting on the edge of their bed while they were in the room. Physical manifestations. Reports include the sudden appearance of a child's handprint on windows and doors that slam shut or open on their own without a draft. Sir William's spirit. There is a persistent local belief that the spirit of Sir William Mackenzie himself, the railway tycoon who built the estate, still roams his Kirkfield estate, to watch over the property. Historical background. The inn was originally the summer home of Sir William Mackenzie, a prominent Canadian businessman. The property has served various roles over the decades, including a private residence, a museum, and an inn. These layers of history have contributed to its reputation as a hidden gem for paranormal enthusiasts in the Kawartha Lakes region. Note on confusion: due to the similar name, this location is frequently confused with the Mackenzie Poltergeist of Edinburgh, Scotland, or the Mackenzie House Museum in Toronto. However, the Kirkfield stories are specific to the 1888 mansion on Portage Road. Merritton Tunnel. Blue Ghost Tunnel, in Niagara Falls. This old train tunnel is rumored to be haunted by a nearby cemetery and the ghosts of two firefighters who died in a train collision in the west end of the tunnel. Merritton Tunnel, commonly known as the Blue Ghost Tunnel, is an abandoned railway passage in Thorold, Ontario, considered one of Canada's most haunted locations. Its reputation for paranormal activity is tied to several tragic events from the late 19th and early 20th century. The tunnel's haunted reputation is built on a series of historical tragedies. The 1903 train collision. On January 3, 1903, two trains met in a head-on collision about a third of a mile from the west entrance. Firemen Charles Horning and Abraham Deselt died from their injuries. Horning was famously mangled in the boiler, and rescuers reportedly found his watch still ticking while it was still attached to his severed arm. Construction deaths. An estimated 107 men died during the construction of the tunnel and the Third Welland Canal. One notable victim was a 14-year-old Irish immigrant crushed by a falling rock in 1875. The flooded cemetery. To build the neighboring canal pond, the old Lakeview Cemetery was flooded. While some bodies were moved, it is estimated that over 600 to 900 graves remain submerged beneath the water today. Visitors and paranormal researchers often describe a variety of spectral experiences. Auditory phenomena, reports of disembodied voices, children's laughter, whistling, and 19th-century music echoing through the stone walls. Physical sensations. Many explorers claim to feel cold spots or the sensation of being watched, touched, or pushed from behind. Atmosphere. The tunnel features constant water leaks, creating an eerie dripping sound, and in winter, massive icicles form, adding to its gloominess. For a visual exploration of the tunnel's history and its current state as a haunted landmark. Mother Wall House in Kenora. The Mather Walls House, often referred to as the Mother Wall House, in Kenora, Ontario, is a historic Queen Anne Victorian home built in 1889 that is widely considered one of the most haunted sites in northwestern Ontario. The resident ghosts. The house is allegedly haunted by at least 3 distinct spirits. The woman in Victorian dress, often seen in the windows or felt as a hostile presence. She is described as being protective or territorial, giving visitors the feeling that they are unwelcome intruders in her home. The little girl, frequently reported in the upstairs bedrooms. Unlike the woman, her presence is described as playful or friendly. Investigators have reported feeling her brush against them or touch their wrists. The male entity, believed by some to be the spirit of John Mather, the original businessman who commissioned the house. Reported paranormal activity. Employees and paranormal investigators, including the Kenora Paranormal Society and the TV show Creepy Canada, have documented several recurring phenomena. Phantom phone calls, reports of a phone ringing incessantly. When answered, there is only silence, yet the ringing continues even after the receiver is hung up. Extreme temperature fluctuations, sudden cold spots where temperatures have been measured dropping from 24 degrees Celsius to 9 degrees Celsius in a matter of seconds. Physical interactions. Witnesses have reported the sensation of being pushed, touched on the neck, or having their clothing pulled. Auditory phenomena. Frequent thumping noises and disembodied whispers in the hallways. Old Fort Erie in Fort Erie. Old Fort Erie, known as Canada's bloodiest battlefield, from the War of 1812, is home to several well-documented ghost stories centered on the heavy casualties sustained during the 1814 Siege of Fort Erie. The "no heads, no hands" soldiers. The most famous legend involves 2 American soldiers often seen wandering the grounds together. The legend, during the siege, one soldier was reportedly receiving a shave from his companion when a British cannonball struck them. The impact instantly decapitated the soldier being shaved and severed the hands/arms of the soldier performing the shave. Supporting evidence. During an archaeological excavation at the ghost of Captain Kingsley. The haunting. The spirit of Captain Kingsley of the King's 8th Regiment of Foot is said to haunt the officers' quarters. The story. Kingsley suffered a long, agonizing death at the fort involving fevers, hallucinations, and mercury poisoning. Visitors and staff have reported hearing disembodied footsteps and seeing windows and doors move on their own in the room where his bed remains. Additional sightings. Shadowy figures. A man in a top hat is frequently reported near the Northeast Bastion, an area where many British soldiers were killed in a massive powder magazine explosion. Mysterious kitchen guest. A famous ghost photo taken at the fort depicts a blurry figure in the kitchen that resembles either a woman in a long skirt or a man in a greatcoat. Child's spirit. Some visitors have reported hearing the sounds of a child crying in various areas of the fort. Fort. 2 skeletons were found in a burial pit, one missing its skull and the other missing both arms below the elbow. Ottawa Jail Hostel in Ottawa. The St. Lo Ottawa Jail Hostel, formerly High Ottawa Jail Hostel, is widely considered one of Canada's most haunted buildings, known for numerous ghost stories centered around its history as the Carleton County Jail Prison. The most famous ghost is that of an executed inmate, Patrick Jewell. The infamous ghost of Patrick Whelan. Patrick J. Whelan was publicly hanged at the jail in 1869 for the assassination of Canadian politician Thomas D'Arcy McGee. Over 5,000 people witnessed the execution on the jail grounds. Whelan maintained his innocence until the end and was denied a proper burial in his family plot, instead being interred in an unmarked grave on the jail property. Many staff and guests report seeing Whelan's spirit, often as a figure standing at the end of their beds in the middle of the night. People staying in the former death row cells on the top floor are especially likely to report an encounter with his ghost. Other ghost stories and phenomena. Unexplained footsteps and noises. Guests commonly report hearing heavy footsteps in the empty corridors, doors slamming without cause, and disembodied whispers or screams. Apparitions and presences. Beyond Whelan, visitors have reported seeing various shadow people and other ghostly figures throughout the building. Some women have reported hearing a phantom voice whisper "hide" in their ear, a story potentially linked to the time when women and children were jailed together in brutal conditions, forcing mothers to hide their children from abusive guards. Paranormal activity. Other reported phenomena include lights turning on and off by themselves, objects, like clothing, being moved, and strange sensations of a ghostly presence. Burial ground. The jail's grim conditions and the discovery of over 140 unmarked graves during later construction work add to the building's eerie atmosphere and reputation as ground zero for ghostly activity. Today, the building operates as a fully functional hostel where guests can choose to stay in converted jail cells. The hostel and the Haunted Walk Company offer nightly tours detailing the history and the chilling ghost stories of the former prison. Picton, Ontario. Ton, Ontario, is home to several well-documented ghost stories, ranging from 1930s poltergeist activity to legendary historical figures. The Poltergeist of Queen Street, 1939. One of Picton's most famous accounts occurred in August 1939 at the home of Mrs. James Ackerman on Queen Street. The activity, loud, violent pounding, would erupt from the door leading to the empty attic every Thursday night. Witnesses, including local police, reported seeing the doorknob turn by itself and the door fly open despite being nailed shut. The spectacle, the mystery, became so famous that on August 17, 1939, over 20 vehicles and a massive crowd gathered outside the home, forcing police to disperse the onlookers. To the ghosts of the Picton Courthouse. The historic Picton Courthouse is the site of a tragic double hanging in 1884. The trial, Joseph Tomzett and George Loder were executed for the murder of Peter Lazier during a botched robbery. Both men maintained their innocence until the end. The haunting. Visitors and staff have reported eerie sensations in the exercise yard and courtroom. A gravestone in the nearby Glenwood Cemetery is dedicated to them, crudely inscribed with the word "unjustly." 3. The Impossible Man, St. Mary Magdalene Cemetery. While not a traditional haunting, Picton's most famous enigma is the headstone of William Pierce in the St. Mary Magdalene churchyard. The date. The marker states he died on February 31, 1860, a date that does not exist. Legacy. The grave was featured on Ripley's Believe It or Not in the 1960s. Local legend suggests his spirit may still be confused by the impossible date of his passing. For the Regent Theatre. The historic Regent Theatre is reportedly haunted by its former owner, Louise Cook. The sightings, Employees have reported seeing her apparition walking the aisles or watching over the ticket booth long after her death. A future ghost, in a unique modern twist, a 2020 fundraiser winner, Ryan Alderd, won the legal right to become the theater's official future ghost after his passing. 5 other notable haunts. Macaulay House, once the home of Reverend William Macaulay, visitors frequently report cold spots and the feeling of being watched in the historic rooms. The Black Labrador of South Bay, near Picton in the South Bay Mariners Cemetery, locals tell of a ghostly black dog that howls at night, searching for its master, a sailor who died in a tragic accident. Ruthven National Historic Park in Cayuga. The primary ghost story associated with Ruthven National Historic Park is that of the Old Squire's ghost, the spirit of David Thompson I, the original owner and founder of the nearby ghost town of Indiana. The site is known for its haunted reputation and has even been featured on the TV show Knock Knock Ghost. David Thompson, an impressive historical figure who fought in the War of 1812 and founded the former town of Indiana along the Grand River, died in his bedroom at Ruthven House in 1851. The legend states, on the same night he died, a massive crash was heard in the rival town of Cayuga, and the front facade of the newly built Cayuga courthouse collapsed. A local reporter at the time connected the two events, claiming Thompson's ghost had floated out of his mortal body and knocked over the courthouse facade as a final act of rivalry and revenge. Some locals believed his spirit was capable of the act, while others argued he would never have ruined a project meant for a town's prosperity. Mansion and Cemetery. Visitors report the presence of a playful resident ghost within the mansion and feelings of dread in the cemeteries on the grounds. Haunted events. Ruthven Park hosts special seasonal events and tours like the Mansion in Mourning and Haunted High Tea, which explore Victorian death practices and include lantern-lit walks to the haunted cemetery with grim tales of burials and rituals. You can find details and book tickets on the Ruthven Park National Historic Site website. Screaming Tunnel in Niagara Falls. The Screaming Tunnel is one of the most famous urban legends in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Located off Warner Road beneath the railway tracks, this 125-foot limestone passage was originally built as a drainage tunnel in the early 1900s. The legend of the Screaming Girl. The primary ghost story centers on a young girl who died tragically within the tunnel's walls. While the details of her death vary by version, they all culminate in her spirit haunting the site. The farmhouse fire. A nearby farmhouse caught fire, and the girl fled into the tunnel with her clothing ablaze. She collapsed and died in the center of the tunnel. The enraged father. During a bitter custody battle, a father allegedly dragged his daughter into the tunnel, doused her in gasoline, and set her on fire. The violent crime. A more disturbing version claims the girl was assaulted and her body was burned in the tunnel to cover up the evidence. The match ritual. Local lore suggests that if you stand in the center of the tunnel at midnight and light a single wooden match, the flame will be extinguished by a ghostly wind. Witnesses claim that after the match goes out, you will hear the girl's piercing screams echoing through the stone passage. Whitby Junction Station in Whitby. The ghost story associated with Whitby Junction Station, now home to the Station Gallery in Whitby, Ontario, revolves around the unsolved murder of Billy Stone, a 21-year-old telegraph operator. The incident, In the early hours of December 11, 1914, Billy Stone was working the night shift alone at his desk. At approximately 12:37 a.m., he was shot by an unknown assailant. Final call: mortally wounded. Stone managed to call a local telephone operator, gasping, "Get the chief quick, I've been shot." He died shortly after help arrived without being able to identify his killer. The mystery: the murder remains one of Whitby's most notorious cold cases. No money was taken from the scene, and despite several theories including a gambling debt or a family dispute, no one was ever convicted. Reported ghostly activity. Following the station's relocation and conversion into an art gallery, staff and visitors have reported several paranormal occurrences. The figure in uniform, a young man dressed in a traditional railway uniform, has been seen staring at visitors, only to vanish when approached. Wall passing. Witnesses have claimed to see a spectral figure passing through walls in the older sections of the building. Cold spots and presence. Paranormal investigators have noted a spectral weight in the gallery, often accompanied by sudden temperature drops near the area where the telegraph desk once stood, now the gallery's kitchen.